it really is so vital for communities all over the country to see this sort of organization taking place. Because frankly, and I'll ask you to excuse my language, this country and the people who run it are a shit show.
Yeah.
I've had the misfortune to have one Keir Starmer as my Member of Parliament for the last 10 years.
Mr. Irritable Bowel.
I'll tell you what he is. He's Mr. Undemocratic and Authoritarian.
Yeah.
From the moment he came to our constituency, he stood as a candidate to be our MP illegally. We had to change the rules for him to be able to stand. Then, what he did next was he got someone he was supposed to be employed working for him in Parliament to spend all of his time in the constituency getting rid of anybody who didn't think that Keir Starmer was God's gift to humanity.
God.
And he did it by calling lifelong anti-racists, anti-Semites, racists, and various other things. Just as today, he is using the Terrorism Act against anybody who dare think that committing a genocide and arming a genocide might not be the best thing to do. So it really is a great pleasure to be here, and I want to commend Sean and each and every one of you who've been involved in getting Southport to this point. You are going to shine a light for the rest of the country. And when I look at what you are doing, I think back to my own political history in South Africa, where we fought over 340 years of racism, of oligarchy, of oppression. And how we eventually succeeded, at least partially, in that struggle was by organizing locally. Across South Africa, in every township and squatter settlement, we had street committees. Every single street was organized. And in communities that didn't lend themselves to that sort of organization, we had what we described as rolling house meetings. So I would get a friend to invite 12 other friends to come round for a meal. And one of us from the ANC would be there to talk to them. And then the people around the table who liked what they heard would go and do the same things. And so we created wave after wave. What were we doing? We were talking to each other. We were talking to each other about the issues that faced us as communities and what we as communities were going to do about it. For many of us in South Africa, we landed up in Parliament as a surprise. None of us ever expected to be formal politicians. None of us ever expected to see the day of liberation and the election of a democratic president in Nelson Mandela. But crucially, when we got into Parliament, President Mandela walked into our caucus of MPs and he said to us, "Who here thinks you're important?" Because he knew a few people would put up their hands. And when they did, he said, "The moment you think you are more important than the people who sent you here, than the people who pay your salary, than the people you are here to represent, is the moment that you are of no value to your community, you are of no value to this parliament, you are of no value to this movement, and you are of no value to this country." And that is what representation is about. It's about people from our communities who are amongst us, representing us. Not because they're better than us or smarter than us, but because they are of us. And this is what has gone wrong in our politics. Because there is just too much money in our politics. So if you want to know why my MP is increasing defence spending by £13.5 billion a year from 2027, and that'll increase even further from 2030, while everything else is getting cut. Our benefits, our public transport, our health service, our education. Why is he doing that? Well, I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that the biggest donor to the Labour Party at this last election was an investment firm that gave them £4.4 million, and that is invested primarily in defence companies, whose shares have skyrocketed the moment that announcement was made. Because that is the reality of how our politics now works. In this country, in our communities, and in our national parliament, we have the best democracy money can buy. And the way we are going to change it together is by doing exactly what you are doing, by organising in our communities. So in Camden, in Islington, where Jeremy is, in Ilford with Leanne Mohammed, in Chingford, in Preston with Michael Lavalette, in Brighton and Hove, all around this country, in Newcastle, communities are starting to organise ourselves. In Camden, we are building something called the Camden Community Independents. We are creating something called the Camden Community Alliance. We are going to ensure as a community that we make life easier day to day for ourselves. And when it comes to elections, we are going to stand against the Labour Party, the Tory Party, and whatever Nigel Farage is calling his party next week. And why are we standing against them? Because they are all a part of the problem and in no way a part of the solution. Because the solutions lie with us, in our communities. And in that way, we are going to make our communities better, we are going to make our country better, and we're going to make the world better. And if that feels like a big task to you, never forget what Nelson Mandela said when he was sitting in an apartheid jail for 27 years. He said, "It's only impossible until we do it." And that's what we're going to do. Thank you.